To preface this review, I read through the entire Fire and Blood book finally, and I've binged and re-binged and re-binged House of the Dragon Season 1. I own Game of Thrones in 4K in all of its entirety on Vudu. I rewatched through that last year, which still love that, still hate the last 2 seasons, and currently I am rereading my A Song of Ice and Fire book series now, which is the entire original Game of Thrones books. Oh, I also finally got to read A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms book as well, which I loved that just as much as I loved Fire and Blood. Which, Fire and Blood, I honestly loved how that's written. I'll probably someday do a review on the Fire and Blood novel because it's such a unique telling of the Targaryen dynasty. But as a preface for this review, House of the Dragon Season 1, I binged and re-binged it and re-binged it just so that I can get a strong grasp on Season 2 in all of its entirety, because Season 1, I never fully finished the Fire and Blood book. I got right into the first chapter or 2 in the Rhaenyra storyline in the book, and then I binged the first season and reviewed it just off that. Well, now, fortunately for Season 2 at least, I completely read through Fire and Blood, and I'm fully up to date completely right now for House of the Dragon Season 1. All of it is completely still clear in my mind. So, House of the Dragon Season 2 premiere is not a review I wanted to do. Mainly now I do reviews for TV shows by season. Just because Game of Thrones taught me that a certain story, a standalone story in a TV show is never fully completed until at least a full season's worth. And The Wire is a good example of that as well. But I have to get this review out there because over the past week, I've even binged Season 2's premiere for House of the Dragon, A Son for a Son. And I feel this is a very, very important episode and storyline in the Dance of the Dragons story. Mainly because of the very end of the episode and the title of the episode. So Season 2 premiere, A Son for a Son, is basically an epilogue for the entirety of the episode from the events at the very end of House of the Dragon Season 1's finale, which, spoilers, Lucerys, the younger of Rhaenyra's sons, ends up getting brutally killed off, him and his dragon, by Aemon and Vhagar in mid-sky coming back from Storm's End after speaking to Boris Baratheon. And A Son for a Son starts off and basically continues where everybody's grieving the loss of Lucerys. And honestly, I think this is a great storyline to continue because Lucerys wasn't exactly a main character, but he was that character that was actually starting to bring about questions of why are we part of the succession? We know we're not actually part of you guys, and we think that the Valyrian bloodline should go to Vaemond and all of them. And I really did start to like Lucerys' character because of those kind of questions he started impending upon Rhaenyra at the end of the Season 1. And then he got brutally killed off, which by book source material was completely accurate and correct. I empathize, I completely understand, and honestly it is a sad devastation of Lucerys getting brutally killed off in the middle of the air and basically never being recovered. But the premiere focuses on that as well as everybody involved in the slaying of Lucerys and how they're grieving after that, including the Greens, including Alicent Hightower, which the biggest thing I have read and I myself have noticed in especially the Season 2 premiere, it's that the showrunners and writers of House of the Dragon, they are mostly sticking to the source material, don't get me wrong. But you can clearly tell that they're trying to set it up to where the blacks, like Rhaenyra and the actual Targaryen line that were supposed to inherit Viserys' kingdom and everything, you can tell that the showrunners are really strongly trying to imply that the Targaryens are the good, the Hightowers are the bad. When in reality, the Fire and Blood book, it's not centered around who's good and who's bad. It's centered around telling the story of the history of the Targaryen lineage. And that's what I loved about the Fire and Blood book overall. It wasn't anecdotal about, well, I like this character, but I don't like this character. It was about everybody is good and everybody's bad and everybody has their motivations and everybody... That's the thing about House of the Dragon, and especially in Season 2's premiere, where it does stick to source material canon to an extent. So, more spoilers. The very end of A Son for a Son does in fact end off exactly where you and what you expected to happen. Where blood and cheese come into play, which honestly, in the Fire and Blood book, the blood and cheese mini storyline is hands down one of my all-time favorite storylines in the Fire and Blood book, maybe even in the entirety of Game of Thrones story. In that blood and cheese are paid off by Daemon Targaryen to basically get revenge for Lucerys, and they strategically sneak into the kingdom and brutally torment Helaena, Aegon's wife and sister, and force her to choose between one of her 3 children to get slaughtered. That's book canon, just so we're clear. In the books, Helaena and Aegon Targaryen, brother and sister, husband and wife, they have 3 kids. Jaehaerys, Maelor, and I honestly don't remember the little girl's name. But in the book, okay, Helaena first offers herself up, being the good mother that she is. Blood and cheese, if I remember correctly, they threaten her to not do that again. She must choose a child to have slaughtered. If she does anything but that, if I remember correctly, they threatened her that they would rape one of her kids. If I remember correctly, I may be wrong. Maybe they said they would rape her or her handmaid, somebody. But I'm pretty sure they threatened to rape one of her kids. So, after the fact, Helaena chose Maelor to be slaughtered off and beheaded and sent back to Rhaenyra and Daemon. And Blood and Cheese did a one-up on her and instead brutally beheaded Jaehaerys. And after the fact, looked at Maelor in the eyes and said, "Your mother wants you dead." And then they scurried off with Jaehaerys' head. Now that's book story. Show story, what we got was Blood and Cheese basically being kind of comedic relief in the sense of they're stupid, they get into the castle, and they know what they're doing, but the problem is that the castle is like not guarded whatsoever. It's really bizarre, because in the book, Blood and Cheese slaughter a bunch of guards, they slaughter handmaids. It all makes sense because this is the king's castle. In the show, they literally scurry it. They don't even scurry. Literally, Blood and Cheese just walk in front of and past Aegon and his friends while they're drinking and drunk. Like nothing is happening. And they go into Helaena and her kids' room with no guards in sight. Literally. And the only person to discover them is a handmaiden that discovers, I think it's Blood, who's setting up a rat trap, and that's his cover, which makes sense. He's setting up a rat trap because prior to these events in the episode, Helaena explains how the rats are coming up, so that does make sense. I'm not entirely sure how Blood would have known about that little arrangement, but whatever. So he goes into Helena's room with her children and discovers Cheese holding her up with his knife. And the same events go into play, except in the show, Maelor is non-existent. Helaena does not try and sacrifice herself, and she just immediately chooses Jaehaerys. And I guess the I guess the tongue-in-cheek reference to the book was Blood about to behead Jaehaerys and then stopping and saying, she can't be saying the right child. She wouldn't just give up the heir to the kingdom just like that. That's really the only reference to the book in this part of the story that we get. Now, personally, I think that the Blood and Cheese storyline was done effectively, although I'm a huge firm believer in source material adaptation 100%. So in that being said, I do have to say the showrunners and the writers kind of did falter, and it all comes back to the point where the events don't make Rhaenyra and Daemon look like good guys in the book. The Blood and Cheese storyline really doesn't make anybody look like the good or bad guys. I mean, I guess the Blood and Cheese storyline in the book really strongly is trying to show Rhaenyra and them that they're the bad guys, or mainly Daemon. But the Blood and Cheese storyline is just a harrowing experience in the story, and I do like the nod that they gave in the show as far as the reference of Helena's not telling them the right king at first, but they realize, no, she's telling true. Now, I understand completely why the show can't show you a kid being beheaded. Like, yes, that's very graphic. Nobody wants to actually fucking see that. Nobody. In the book, it's completely fine because you can visualize it if you want to. I didn't. I just read it. But the thing is, too, not just this scene, but Daemon's written character in the show kind of just always feels like he wants to just do war because fuck all. And in the book, he's like that, being the Rogue Prince, but at the same time, he's always about family and protecting what's his. In the show, he does kind of come off as, I just want to do this because fuck all, I like war. I mean, like I said, that is still part of Daemon and who he is. But in the show, they write him off basically as that's just him. Overall, for me, the season 2 premiere, A Son for a Son, I liked it. It was a lot better paced than all of season 1. Season 1 just was completely tonally inconsistent with bad pacing, mainly because of the huge time lapses. But season 2's premiere is a great start for season 2. So overall, A Son for a Son for me is an 8 out of 10. Thank you.